And we have a very special guest today. The very Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck is one of the foremost Unity metaphysicians. He is powerful in his understanding, and he is clear, so clear in how he presents these teachings, particularly around the 12 powers, which is what his C class is going to be about, and just anything having to do with metaphysics in general. So he will be joining us after service today at the Spiritual Salon, so please do drop in and say hi to him. He's also teaching a workshop, the Metaphysical Romp, that's today from 3 to 5. You can find out more information on our website, but absolutely, please do sign up. And then he is teaching a class for us on the 12 powers, beginning Monday. It's Monday from 6:30 to 8:30, running Monday through Friday. It'll be an intensive, powerful opportunity to dive into the 12 powers. So if you wanted to know more about that, this is a great opportunity to learn and to grow in consciousness. So right now, before Paul comes in, I'm going to invite our very own Katie Bertschi with a Daniel Nahmod song, One Power.
There's one power invisible, and you see it everywhere and every day. There's one power indescribable, and you speak of it in every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth. Simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angel's wings or heaven's door. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of the love in you. We speak so many languages, have different clothing, different colors, different names. But different is only dangerous when we forget that in the heart we're all the same. We'll remember when we close our eyes to see that such distances were never meant to be. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, Hashem, or heaven's door. It's Muhammad, it's your mind, it's your soul, or it's your sign. It's the universe, it's music, Mother Earth or Father Time. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. It's the power of the love in you and me. One power, one power. It's the moment of creation. It's an everlasting peace. It's the freedom of forgiveness. It's the sweetness of release. It's the joy of inspiration. It's the sunshine on your face. It's the birthright of all nations. It's the boundlessness of space. It's the beauty of a baby, the serenity of sleep. It's the anger we abandon for its love, for its love, for its love, for its love, for its love that's most deep. It's one power, one power, one power. It's love, for its love, for its love. It's the power of the love in you and me. It's the power of the love in you and me.
Greetings. This is the Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck, and I am so delighted to be with my Unity of San Francisco family, virtually in the Zoomiverse. And a shout out to Ken for inviting me once again. I'm always happy to be with you any way we can make it work. And so this is the behind the scene pictures. Some people on Zoom say they like to see the people in their rooms. Well, you're not going to see that except now. And so that's my setup, just as it is as I'm recording right now. And welcome to my home. Most of all, welcome in my heart. And so relax, sit back. My expectation is you'll understand. There's no necessity to believe anything. And my slides are available, and you can get them right there at alberthasselbeck@gmail.com. I will make the slides available and a PDF of them available to Ken so he can share them with you as well. And you'll notice I have that picture of someone using their cell phone. Feel free to use your cell phone to take pictures of any of these slides as we go along. No need to scribble notes unless you want to. And so this talk is about the 12 powers in abnormal times. And I know we certainly hope individually and collectively, these are abnormal times, and we're going to get back to a new and better normal. And as we're talking about the 12 powers, remember I'm teaching a class this week on the 12 powers, and you see there below me, that is the textbook I recommend we use. It's called Power Up Your Life. Okay, so these are the 12 powers. They're 12 divine ideas. They're also could be called principles, because divine idea and power and principle are really synonyms if you dig deep into the historic writings. Now, I'm not expecting you to remember all of these. I set this up this way so you can see some of the things that we talk about in the 12 powers, that in some ways they're like the chakras, in that each one is related to a body center in our bodies. They don't line up completely to the chakras, but the concept is pretty much the same. And so with these 12 powers, I like to say they're included in your divinity, along with a bunch of other principles. And they are, in our relatives' existence, we experience them as abilities, natural abilities. And we're always using them. And in fact, we cannot not use them. And we use them to express ourselves. We use them to express our thoughts, our feelings, in fact, our personalities and our bodies. And so as we begin this talk, I'd like to remind you that we Unity people are apocalyptimists, and kind of relate that to the 12 powers. Just like this little dandelion had to be really, really focused on getting through that asphalt, that dandelion had conviction as it burst through and grew. And I bet you, if that dandelion could think as it was hitting that asphalt for the first time, I bet it could have thought that its world was going to hell in a handbasket. And yet it thought it was going to turn out well. And in fact, this is the way an apocalyptomist is defined, found in the Urban Dictionary. And you'll find it down there. Someone who knows it's all going to hell, but still thinks it will turn out okay. And so that's the way we Unity folks are. We can say it is what it is. And then in Unity, we take it a step further. It is what I name it. It is what I call it, because what I name it, what I call it, will be how I tend to use it and perceive it in my own life. So let's look at a few of the powers that are associated with being an apocalyptomist. So we have faith, it's conviction. We have to have that belief, that conviction, that no matter what the appearance is here, we can use it for good. We can find or manifest a blessing out of it. And we have to energize ourselves. We have to energize this conviction, and that happens using the power of life. And yes, we got to add the power of zeal. It's the power we use to be enthusiastic, to motivate ourselves. And so I think many, many Unity people are naturally motivated to find the good, to look for the blessing. And so it's important that we remember, as Unity Truth students, that we be apocalyptomists in these abnormal times. And you notice that I added the word benevolence, because benevolence is a principle, but it's not included in that subset of principles we call the 12 powers. And benevolence is like this tendency to do good. And when we are in this frame of mind, in these abnormal times, we use this benevolence to be the best we can be. And so one of the problems that come up as I talk to people since really before March, as this COVID thing was coming on the scene, was this fear that people had. And so I want to share with you my point of view when we think of fear and love. Fear and love. We tend to think they have separate and different origins. However, I have another idea, because I'm in the habit of questioning my unquestioned answers. And as I prepared this talk for the first time, I noticed that I just assumed fear had a different origin. And so when we talk about love, the power, it's really a principle. It's our ability to desire, our ability to harmonize, our ability to unify. And Charles Fillmore, one of our co-founders, said this: God is love, that from which all loving springs. The principle of love, that's the very principle we use to have that feeling or emotion of love. And he also said, God is love, from which is drawn forth all feeling, sympathy, and emotion. So once again, Charles is reinforcing the idea that this principle, this power we call love, is what we use to manifest feelings, emotions, and sympathy, all related to that feeling we call love. And just a heads up, you see there below me, there's a Charles Fillmore collection on the Unity website in the archives. You can go there and find a lot of unpublished material, and you will be amazed at what you find there. And so before Unity, I was deeply involved with A Course in Miracles. And so I remembered this quote, and here's the original quote, and I'm going to read it with you. You read along, right along with me. Fear and love are the only emotions of which you are capable. And we've heard this a lot, haven't we? This idea that comes from A Course in Miracles permeates our society in many ways. And it goes on to say, one is false, for it was made out of denial, and denial depends on the belief in what is denied for its own existence. So one of the problems people have reading A Course in Miracles is that it's easy to get lost in all those pronouns. So let me help you. So I adapted the quote, getting rid of the pronouns. This is what it says. Read along with me if you like. Fear and love are the only emotions of which you are capable. Fear is false, for fear was made out of the denial of love. And then it goes on, therefore fear depends on the belief in love for its own existence. In other words, fear couldn't exist without love. And I'm going to have a little more to say about that in a moment. And so that quote started with, fear is false, for fear was made out of the denial of love. I never questioned that when I was studying the Course in Miracles. But like I said, I like to question my unquestioned answers. And that was one of them. And I began to look at it. So what I think is fear is, I'm going to read this with you. Fear is something we make in response to a threat to something we love. I'm going to repeat that. Fear is something we make in response to a threat to something we love. That might be ourselves, that might be others, that might be things. It could be a whole panacea of things we love. And this, friends, makes a lot more sense to me. And what happens is when we start being afraid that we're going to lose something we love, we get focused on the love. And all kinds of biochemistry starts to happen within our body in response to that fear and any related thought. And so then it goes on, as the original quote, again, read along with me, by interpreting fear correctly as a positive affirmation of the underlying belief it masks, you are undermining fear's perceived usefulness. See, that perceived usefulness in the context of Course in Miracles was, it was being made to hide the love. That's what made it useful. But if you see the fear as a positive affirmation that love is also present, it undoes that usefulness. But I'll go further. If you perceive that fear as simply a response you're having to the idea you might lose something you love, or something you love might be damaged or hurt in some way, including yourself, then I think it becomes a little easier. And so I've adapted that by interpreting fear correctly as a positive affirmation of the underlying love fear masks, you're undermining fear's perceived usefulness. So we need to look at this in the context of our threefold nature. And the important thing we want to remember is when fear is present, we use that as a clue that there is something within me, myself, or another, or a thing that I'm afraid something's going to happen to. And as soon as I'm aware of fear, that can remind me of love. And that's how we move from fear to love. They don't have separate origins. Fear couldn't exist if there wasn't something, someone, including myself, I love. So in the context of our threefold nature, we know we are spirit, soul, and body, using Charles Fillmore's traditional language. We could call it our divinity, our humanity, and our body. And for me to be just a little more specific, because you've heard me say it, what happens in vagueness stays in vagueness, we could say we are threefold in nature. We are fundamentally principle, we have a personality, and we have a body. And in fact, we are manifesting, using the 12 powers, our personality and body from those 12 principles we call the 12 powers. And in the diagram below, you can see I have them color-coded to the words, and that they're not really separate. They're interlocking, they're interactive, and in some mystical way, they're one. They're one at some level. And so knowing this, we can now look at the autonomic nervous system. Below my picture, you can see two sides to the autonomic nervous system. One is called sympathetic and the other is called parasympathetic, but those fancy names aren't important. One part controls the fight, flight, freeze, or please response. The fight, flight, freeze, or please response. If you haven't heard about the please response being added to this, Google it. You'll be really interested. And when that part of our autonomic nervous system is stimulated, we release adrenaline amongst many other biochemicals. And adrenaline speeds up our system. And what that does is it gets us ready to fight, flight, freeze, or please. And it restricts the blood vessels in those parts of our body that aren't really needed at the moment. Now, this is going to sound a little crazy. One of those places is in our frontal lobes. And so our higher thinking nature related to our brain gets less blood supply. And in a way, our higher thinking, our intellect, goes offline temporarily. And surely you've experienced that when you've been angry or fearful. Now, the body has a way to counteract that biochemical response to fear. And that's connected to something we call the calm and connect response. And that drug that's related to that, or we could say that biochemical the body naturally resists to calm down the fear response, is oxytocin. And oxytocin is associated with love, that feeling of connectedness, that feeling of oneness, and that calms us down. And so knowing that, we can take another step. This is called calm and connect breathing. It's 4-7-8 breathing. And I can share with you, anytime I'm feeling fear, anytime I'm starting to feel anxious, I can simply go to this method and it calms me down immediately. That's because the breathing, this type of breathing, activates that side of your autonomic nervous system that calms you down. And so you breathe this way, and you do it 3 times. You breathe in to a count of 4, you hold to a count of 7, and then you exhale through pursed lips. See that baby down there? That cute little thing has pursed lips. So we exhale like this. We empty our lungs, and then we take another deep breath. We hold it for 4. Wait, I should say we breathe in to a count of 4, we hold it for 7, and we exhale for a count of 8. And that calms down that biochemical response that fear produces in our bodies, and we're able to calm down. And as we calm down, we can use our intellect and our thinking nature better to handle whatever it is we're being fearful about in the moment. And so the 12 powers in abnormal times, there are so many ways in which we can use it, but these are 3. You can consciously choose to be a better apocalyptimist. We can remember that when fear arrives, we can use it as a positive affirmation that love is present and reframe from fear to love. And whenever that fear response, any agitated response comes up, we can use the calm and connect breathing technique. And we're going to practice that during the meditation. For now, once again, thank you for inviting me. And I know it's another beautiful day in your consciousness.